really particularly like his character because he was such a mess in the beginning, and I related to that. Howdy my loves, it's Julie here. We are here today to read the top romances according to Goodreads from 2024. We are going back to last year. We are reading the best romances because, I don't know, I just wanted to see how they compared between 2024 and 2025, especially now that we're about to get a new wrap up from Goodreads for the best romances of this year. I was just kind of curious to see and experiment what exactly makes the romances different between last year and this year. If you are unaware of how this works, every single year around November, December, Goodreads puts out the best books in each category. So for example, there's romantasy, there's romance, there's horror, and every single round, and there's a couple of rounds, each voter gets the chance to select which they think is the best in each category. And the way that we are going to edit this video for the sake of your purposes and so that you guys aren't ultimately incredibly confused, I wanted to do it in least best to best order, meaning from number 20 all the way to number 1 based on how Goodreads viewers voted for it. This is going to be reading vlog style. There are going to be clips of me consuming each of these books. However, I am going to say that some of these books were already read previous to me doing this video. I'm still going to talk about them. I'm going to give a brief summary of every single book that we are reading in this video all the way at the end of the video. So stay tuned. I'm going to tell you what my ranking is because ultimately I do disagree with the way that the readers voted for these books in this category. Obviously, that's up to opinion. I totally understand that every single person is going to view each of these books differently, but for the sake of my video, I did want to give my final list and my order of the top 20 romances of 2024. At number 20, we have Lies and Weddings. This is by Kevin Kwan. If you do not recognize this author, I think the more familiar work for a base of reference would be Crazy Rich Asians. Very popular book and an even more popular movie. I absolutely love that movie. It's like my go-to airplane movie, if I'm being honest. When I heard that this was the same author as Crazy Rich Asians, so excited, so pumped. However, guys, I ended up DNFing this book. That is such a shock to me because number 1, I love Crazy Rich Asians, and number 2, because I do not DNF books. And for this book, I made an exception. I ended up reading only about like 8 to 10% of this book, I believe. It was on my phone. I didn't have a physical copy. I just could not get into it, guys. Like, just the beginning of this book was incredibly slow, and I'm gonna tell you what the summary is in a minute. Could not get through it. I was so bored and I just had to move on. So for me, unfortunately, do believe that this deserves to be at number 20. All right, I'm gonna give you an abridged summary so that you guys can make your own decisions if you would like to pursue this novel. This book is about an heir to a very famous legacy. When he inherits his position, he finds out that actually he has nothing. His family is broke, he has debt. The only way that he can save his family's legacy is by pursuing a woman who is wealthier than he is, forced by his mother to pursue other women in their social circles that are known to have money in order to save their problem. Problem with that though is that he really is debating between doing what's right for his family versus going with his heart, and he actually is in love with the girl next door, but unfortunately it is a DNF for me. Number 19, we have The Love of My Afterlife. Very quirky. It is about a woman who at 27 years old, unfortunately chokes to death on a burger and dies. I know that sounds a little grim, but it is incredibly comedic. So this whole book is a very like quirky comedy undertone. It kind of reminds me of how The Good Place views death and how they kind of handle like, you know, the comedic side of dying in a very tragic way. Main character ends up going to the afterlife where she meets her afterlife guide, who is this like very young, up and coming, like ambitious woman who's trying to create a dating scene in the afterlife. She's like a hopeless romantic. While she's being escorted through the afterlife, she bumps into this man. This man, she believes, has like an amazing connection with her, and then all of a sudden he gets snapped back to life because it was a mistake that he wandered there while unconscious. Now this woman begs her afterlife guide to let her go back to Earth, and so she says, listen, I will give you 10 days, and if you can get this man to kiss you by day 10, I will let you live. What happens is that this girl with her afterlife guide basically realizes in the process of trying to get this man to kiss her that she has had absolutely absolutely no life. She has no connections to anyone, family, friends, or otherwise. And so it's about her trying to figure out what would make her life worthwhile if she did get the chance to live again. Little reading walking sesh. Today we are starting The Love of My Afterlife by Christy Greenwood. And the first sentence is, "This cannot be how I die." Interesting. I literally have no expectations of this book. Like, I haven't really heard many people talk about it, nor do I know like the tropes in it. I only know based off the summary that like they're both dead and then they come undead. We're just gonna do a little walking sesh. So I finished my little walk and I've made it to about 10%. Right as she is trying to run away from her being scared of her death, a guy named Jonah bumps into her and she's like completely smitten with him and she's like, oh my God. But the girl is like, what's her name again? Delphi. Delphi is like, send me back. She's like, I want to go back. She's like, you know what? She's like, you guys had really good chemistry. Like, maybe he was one of your soulmates. Because she said apparently you have 5 soulmates walking around on Earth at any given time. That sounds made up as fuck. 5 soulmates? That like defeats the purpose of a soulmate. Shouldn't call it a soulmate then. Those should be called prospects. She's like, maybe that was one of your 5. Delphi's like, send me back. So she's like, fine. You have 10 days. Get him to kiss you. And if he does, I'll let you live. So she's like, oh my God, thank you. So she gets sent back. Right away, she wakes up. The guy she wakes up to, his name is Cooper. And he is like all grumpy. Found her in her apartment passed out. And apparently they've had some beef for a while. She keeps seeing him like bringing out women. Like, and then all of a sudden he had like a personality change. Like he used to be so bright and happy. And then all of a sudden he was like dark and glaring and broody. And she was like so annoyed with him. And her packages keep getting accidentally delivered to his apartment. And he's just like annoyed with her all the time. Now I am pretty sure that she's gonna end up with Cooper and Jonah is just like a plot device to like get them together. I'm really excited because I do not like instant chemistry. I think it's so boring. I want the build, you know? I'm really happy that now I am probably reading a grumpy Sunshine, but I also don't love the prospect of a love triangle. But it's only over 10 days, so at least it won't be very long. I finished The Love of My Afterlife. I ended up rating that book 3.5 stars. At the heart of it, I really did like the thesis. And I think that the message of the book is really put in place by this one quote. And it says, being alive is about experiencing the full gamut of human emotion. If you're not feeling pushed and pulled and scared and delighted instead of just safe, then you're not doing it right. That was an important lesson for Delphi to learn because she was just so not content, but just kind of like set on the fact that she was just going to be in her own little space, comforted, alone, single, by herself for the rest of her life. Even though she had so many opportunities to befriend and get to know people around her who wanted to be friends with her, people kept trying to reach out to her and she would constantly bat them away. And by her dying and her coming back to life and being forced to interact with these people, she was finally able to learn that like she had a life worth living. She just had to kind of step into that. And I loved that message. I think it was so sweet. I am so happy for her because at the end of the book, she has a beautiful life and she has all these people in her life who are like looking out for her, who like want to continue to live life with her. That includes the main love interest, which is Cooper. I was right. It was the neighbor next door. I absolutely love the plot twist that her afterlife therapist was Cooper's sister who died a couple of years ago. I really liked that plot twist and I did really love the grumpy grumpy sunshine. Actually, you know what? It wasn't grumpy sunshine. It was like grumpy grumpy because they were both really very sullen people. Cooper also needed someone to kind of remind him that like life was worth living again and that be happy even though you lost someone really important to you. I just think that because of the timeline, because she only had 10 days, everything was so sped up and escalated that like a natural progression of love and attachment between her and Cooper was kind of like impossible. 10 days is just so short of a time, and then at the start of it they hated each other. At like 60% of the book they still weren't together. It was hard to condense all of that feeling and make it feel reasonable for them to be in love with each other after 10 days. Because of that, I did end up giving it the 3.5 stars. I did think this book was really enjoyable. I liked that it was set in London, so it was like a different setting than I normally get. Overall, I thought the book was really cute. It was a really fun time, and like I said, like I was just so happy for the FMC at the end of this. She was so alone, and like her relationship with her mother broke my heart. Like the fact that the mom like knew she was in the hospital and she didn't even really care enough to call her. She was just like, oh, get well soon. But that's why at the end when she had Mr. Yoon and her coworkers and Cooper's family and like her friends, the guys from the deli and like Aled from the library and Frida the dog walker, like I was just so happy that she had this huge circle of friends to rely on now and to like have parties with and to like view her art and to draw, and like I was really, really happy about that. At number 18, we have How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwang. For this book, I am gonna say just to read the trigger warnings, guys, because it does cover serious topics such as suicide. Helen, the female main character in this story, has unfortunately lost her sister to suicide in high school. Now, her sister decides to step out onto the highway and therefore incriminating a random classmate of theirs. His name is Grant. Years later, Helen has written a best-selling novel that is being turned into a TV series. Grant is a screenwriter and he has decided to take on her project. This is supposed to be like an enemies to lovers, dislike to lovers, forbidden trope. Let's do an update on How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwang. This book has been very pleasantly surprising for me. I feel like I didn't expect to relate to the main character as much as I do, but I actually am peeling through it. So I just went to Texas over the weekend. On my flight, like I was like, well, I have nothing else to do, so let me start reading this book. I really didn't have like high expectations for it. I've gotten to 60% of the way through the book, so like I am like devouring it. It's very good. Really, really good quotes in here about the main character. Her name is Helen. Like I mentioned, she's dealing with the tragedy of losing her sister and then also coming to terms with the fact that she is now in a semi-relationship with her sister's killer. Because it's such an emotional topic, it is very deep at certain points, but also very like jovial at other points. I think that this book does a great job talking about mental health and about overcoming tragedy, grief, the experience of being a child of immigrants, being an oldest daughter, tackling all these very nuanced, very complex topics, and then having a very sweet romance on top of it where it's kind of like fun and flirty, and like these two people who are adults who are, you know, in their 30s and like have overcome very tragic things are now experiencing a very fun relationship with each other. They're both also like heavily invested in their careers. They're very passionate about writing about this TV show. I just think that this is such a fun read and I'm so excited to wrap this book up. Guys, we finished. Really liked this book. Pleasantly surprised, honestly. And I ended up rating this 4 stars. I stayed up until like 2 in the morning to finish this. I was just so invested in this story. So many good quotes. The yearning near the end was just so compelling to me. This couple was just tragic and yearning at the end that I just had to finish it last night, and it was totally worth it. Like I honestly started crying near the end. Maybe it was just because I was sleep deprived. The way that the last 20-30% of the book unfolded was so sad, but it made me yearn to have them reconcile because they were just really good together. And even though they were bonded by like something really tragic, there was a lot that they had in common and that they found in each other. And especially as two people who like never felt like they loved anyone or could love anyone. And honestly, like I felt for the main character a lot because she came from a household that wasn't super loving and that didn't really show love in a normal way. And so when it came to relationships and friendships, She just didn't know how to do that. There's some quotes in here I'm gonna read you guys because they're so good. Helen is a mountain climber if he's ever known one, and he thinks he would have been happy to climb mountains with her for the rest of their lives. He would have reminded her to stop sometimes, to look back on how far she'd come and take some time to enjoy it. And she'd have helped him keep walking past the familiar peaks he'd already climbed and circled before, urging them both onward. Come on, there's a better view just around the corner. He wonders if maybe he could do that for himself, if loving Helen, even if it was never really his right to love her in the first place, means he gets to carry some version of her with him forever. I just think that was such a good way to illustrate like the yin and yang of their relationship and like how they're different, but also how they could complement each other. Helen writes this devastating letter to her sister Michelle about like what she was feeling about her death and her taking her own life. And she goes, I've always found endings harder than beginnings, goodbyes harder than hellos. When I was a kid, I had this idea, a hope really, that life and death were two sides of the same door, and that when you died, there would be a long hallway in the afterlife where you could walk past the doors of all the lives you've lived before. Still, I hope this is the kind of story where there's an epilogue. One day I'll turn the last page and suddenly you'll be there, and I'll walk up to another chance to get everything right this time. I'll start by telling you I love you. And that was the end of her letter to her sister, which had me devastated. At number 17, we have a love song for Ricki Wilde. This is about a girl who is trying to escape her family. Her family is cut from the same cloth. All of her sisters are very similar, and she decides to kind of lean into the black sheep of the family and does her own thing. She wants to have a flower shop in New York, and she decides to be an entrepreneur on her own away from her family. In the midst of that, she keeps running into this man who she thinks is like the most captivating person in the world, and she ends up finding out that he is actually a man out of time. He has been alive for years. She is trying to figure out how exactly they know each other because she just feels like she knows him.
A love song for Ricki Wilde by Tia Williams doesn't necessarily feel like she fits into her family. She has 3 older sisters who are beautiful and polished, and she doesn't feel like she fits in, not only because of her personality, but also because she does not want to join the family business, which is a chain of funeral homes. I don't really blame her. She describes herself as a dandelion, a weed, whereas her sisters are roses.
I've been really slow with this book. I'm only 50% of the way through. I'm not really loving it so far, and I think that's why it's taking me a longer time than it did with the last couple books that I read. The 2 main characters really don't interact with each other until about 30 to 40% of the way through the book, which I think is kind of insane considering that it's marketed as a romance. Actually, in the beginning of the book, she like meets a different guy and like gets into a relationship with him, and they break up before she even meets this guy. They keep referencing that Ezra, the main male character, has some problem with leap years, and that like there's flashback scenes to him in like the 1920s in New York. They literally keep just like bumping into each other for 1 second and then just like departing. I finished her love song for Ricki Wilde. Really disappointed. Not that like it offended me in any particular way. I actually think all of the elements in the book would have been so good if it was just written in a good romance. I think that too much was put into setting up characterization and not enough effort was put into the romance. And at the end of the day, this is marketed as a romance novel, and you can't have the romance falling flat. The whole premise is that this is supposed to be soulmates, fated to be together and to lose each other. I'm sorry, but you couldn't get me to believe that they were in love. They weren't. I actually love the soulmate trope. I think that mates, soulmates, like I really do fall for it, but I don't like it if the only reason you guys are together just because you're soulmates. It wasn't for me. So I ended up giving this book 2.75 stars. Sorry, I have to show this. I just died laughing because I was looking up the reviews in Goodreads under a love song for Ricki Wilde to like validate myself that I wasn't crazy, because the overall Goodreads rating is high. I was looking under the like 2-star, 1-star reviews. This one just made me die. This person gave it 2 stars and says, I refuse to believe that being immortal gets rid of your seasonal allergies. That was a part of the story. Like, he became mortal at the end and suddenly his allergies came back. Number 16, we have Swift and Saddled. This is book number 2 in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. This book is very much cowboy romance, small town romance. The FMC is going through a life crisis. She just got divorced and she is trying to reinvent herself by taking on a new job, a new project. She decides to move to the town where the project is happening, and she ends up at a dive bar. She has a little bit of a hookup with a random cowboy. Turns out that cowboy is her boss.
I read Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage, and that's number 2 in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I didn't read number 1. You're not missing too much by not reading number 1. The couple from book 1 is referenced, but you can completely understand the story. This book was basically about Ada Hart and how she had just gone through a divorce from basically a narcissist who wanted to brutally control her. The night before she's supposed to start her job, she goes to a bar, she makes out with this mysterious stranger, and lo and behold, that mysterious stranger is her boss. Very insta-lovey, which is not my thing. I'm more of a slow burn type of girl, so I was a little bit turned off by that. The guy, Wes, is a sweetheart. I will say he had all the good intentions. He was such a green flag boyfriend. He really let her do her own thing and kind of come to the conclusion that he came to immediately, which is that they're great together. Didn't really love Ada that much. She just kept kind of saying like, I need to run away. Like, I can't be controlled by a man again. But then she treated Wes terribly. It felt like this story was like not super fleshed out. It was kind of just like a meh story for me. I ended up giving it 3 stars.
At number 15, we have This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. This book is about a woman, Soledad, the mother of 3 beautiful girls, and she unfortunately found out that her husband was embezzling from his company and also cheating on her at the same time. He has gone to prison, and the person who has found out about his embezzlement is Judah Cross, and her and Judah start to have feelings for each other, not only about romance, but also about self-love, because Soledad has to figure out what her life is going to look like outside of her marriage. She was definitely a very much stay-at-home mom. She decides to get into content creation to try to make a living for her girls because they were used to a very specific lifestyle. I'm so stressed, like mid-packing for Virginia. I was like, well, I have to take a book with me, right? So I am bringing This Could Be Us by Miss Kennedy Ryan, and I'm going to be starting that this weekend. I am really excited to read this book. I have heard such good things about this. Fun fact, I, for the longest, thought this was book 1 in the series. It's actually book 2. It's actually like a single mom, single dad romance. I totally thought this was like a marriage in peril, and I'm actually really excited the fact that it's a single parent instead, because I don't really like marriage in peril stories. I read one of them before, and it was just kind of like, ugh. It's the same thing with second chance romance. It's just not my fave. It's not for me. This cutie is going inside of my bag for the weekend. I finally finished This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan, and I ended up giving this a 3.75 stars. Now, this book had everything that I love. It was like single dad romance, single mom romance. It was content creation. It was like a slow burn. Like, it had all of the makings of a good romance, and I can't tell if I rated it 3.75 stars, which in my book is still good. There's still redeemable qualities to that, but it wasn't great. But I can't tell if I rated that because I genuinely feel that way about this book, or because I was feeling really slumpy this month. I feel like in September I read so many books, and then in October I was just trying to take like a back seat to reading and trying to be a little bit slow with it. So take my rating with a grain of salt. And this isn't like a bad thing, by the way. I think I'm just coming at this through a lens of romance because it was on Goodreads romance list. However, I think you would have a better time reading this book if you came at it thinking that it was a novel of self-discovery with a subplot of romance. Because even though we're getting the points of view of both Judah and Soledad, this is more so a self-discovery and character analysis on Soledad after she had realized that her husband was cheating on her, after her whole foundation of her life had kind of crumbled. She needed to become financially responsible, and she needed to find a way to pay for her girls to keep living the lifestyle they were living. And I think the whole book can be summarized by this quote, which I love. When are we ever done working on ourselves? I believe wholeness is not a destination, but a lifetime process, something that instead of waiting for, you could be living for. There were a lot of great quotes like that about her going through the dating myself journey and just realizing what she needed to feel complete as a person, and how does that fit in with her dating a man so soon after she divorced her cheating husband. Then at number 14, we have Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. If you follow my channel, you know I'm an Ali Hazelwood stan. I will read anything she writes. I remember specifically buying this book on release day when I was in London. I went to a Waterstones in London to pick this up. I'm absolutely obsessed with Ali Hazelwood's writing, you know that. However, This one is a bit of an exception. This is my least favorite Ali Hazelwood book. Not saying it's bad. However, I am going to tell you a little bit about it because I actually read this before this video was filmed. Rue, the main character, she is a very no strings attached, no nonsense type of girl. She was working as a biotech engineer. She's very loyal to the woman in charge of that biotech engineer firm. On the side, likes to go on dating apps to find very easy, meaningless hookups. She ends up hooking up with Eli Kilgore. Now, it turns out Eli Kilgore is the head of the guy who's trying to take over her company. But he's trying to figure out what to do with Rue because he's obsessed with her and he doesn't want her to get caught in the crossfires of him taking over. Ended up rating this book 3.75 stars. That might not seem low because to me 3 stars is still good, but considering every single Ali Hazelwood book gets less than 4.25. This one was just not my vibe. I still finished it incredibly quickly. I'm gonna tag a mini reading vlog of me reading this book on New Year's Eve. It was my last book that I read from 2024. I think the reason that I struggled to love this as much as her other books is because I'm not huge into insta love, insta lust, but also they were very weirdly trauma dumpy. Like they had this ongoing bit in the novel where each one of them would say something terrible that they've done. They would say something absolutely unhinged and awful, and then the other person would reciprocate by sharing something also unhinged and awful, and then they wouldn't acknowledge it and they would just keep moving on, and that was like a bit they would do. Let's U-turn and reverse back into that, because what the fuck do you mean by that? Like, even though I found it very, very entertaining, I still couldn't give it above 3.75 stars. Then at number 13, we have the Rom-commers. I have read Catherine Center before. I own her book, The Bodyguard. While she's not like a favorite author of mine, I do think her books are generally like very fun and entertaining. Definitely more on like the quirky rom-com side, and this is no exception. In fact, that's the subject of this book. It's about this girl, Emma, who's trying to make it as a screenwriter, and she has the opportunity to work with a very popular, idolized screenwriter on a rom-com, but the only problem is that Charlie absolutely has no respect for her or like rom-coms in general. So she's trying to convince him that romances, and especially romantic comedies, are a genre worth exploring, even though that's so different from anything he's ever done.
I am so sicky icky right now. Gross. Have a cold. I can barely form 2 thoughts together, in case you couldn't tell. The Rom-commers by Catherine Center. I don't own the physical copy. Just got it on my phone last night. I just started it a little bit this morning. Kind of hopeful. It was rated really well on Goodreads. Other people who I know have read it, so I am really excited to get into it. Also, I've been reading very different genres recently. I've been reading like horror, and then I'm also reading fantasy right now. I'm reading Throne of Glass. Like, it's nice to have like a cutesy little romance. It's like a reward. It's later in the evening. I'm still yucky. I'm still gross. I have one less brain cell, which is to say that the only brain cell I have left really likes the first half of the Rom-commers. I'm 57% of the way through, which is so much further than I thought I was going to read in one night. It's really entertaining. I do like the fact that they are not only learning how to work with each other, but also how to live with each other at the same time. So it offers a lot of proximity events to happen, like cooking together, their morning routine is, and then writing together. It's really cute. Finished the Rom-commers last night. I stayed up entirely too late. Right now, the following day, I am about to take a fat nap. But I did want to update you on how I felt about the book as a whole. I thought the book was really cute. It was entertaining. It wasn't anything mind-blowing, which is kind of like the vibe I get from Catherine Center. There was just some problems I had with Charlie. Like, I understand that he was under a lot of stress. I felt like he was a little mean. Like, he was a little mean to her. He was definitely an acts of service type of guy. Like, but if her love language was words of affirmation, Bestie was starving. So I just kind of feel like maybe he could have done a little bit better in that department. I also found the ending to be a bit unsatisfying. I understand the point of the story was to be like, bad things happen, but like you should make the best of it. Her whole thing in the book is they're writing a rom-com. You want to read fiction because fiction's happy and gives you a sense of like fulfilling need and like, bruh, what do you think you're doing to me right now, reminding me that the world isn't perfect? Also, I don't know how you guys pronounce Cuthbert, and you might be wondering what the hell is that? Well, it's the name of the guinea pig, and I asked everybody in my life how you pronounce that. Cuthbert. I don't know where that came from. But anyway, I did rate it 3.75 and it was an enjoyable time. I devoured it very quickly.
At number 12, we have Daydream by Hannah Grace. This is book 3 in the Maple Hills series. If you are unfamiliar with this, I think you would very much know from Book Talk, Icebreaker. I've actually read Icebreaker. I didn't think it was as amazing as everyone said. I rated it 3.75 stars. I thought it was entertaining, but nothing spectacular. And then I haven't read book number 2 yet, but it's definitely on my physical TBR. I have it. Now, book number 3 is about Henry, who is so beloved from book 1. Henry Turner is the new captain of the hockey team. This is a hockey romance. His love interest, Hallie, is very much eldest daughter coded. Alexa, play Eldest Daughter by Taylor Swift, because that is her theme song. She is somebody that her family relies on a lot, and she often feels the pressure of taking care of her younger siblings and also making sure that her parents are okay. She just got out of a tough breakup. This was somebody who everyone was pressuring her to be with. She couldn't feel anything, and then all of a sudden here's Henry, and suddenly she's like, oh, maybe there isn't something wrong with me. Maybe I was just with the wrong person. And she's trying to write a novel. So Henry is trying to help her get experience for her novel because she feels like she has not experienced love in her life enough to write about it. I am 50% through Daydream by Hannah Grace. I just had some thoughts. I am not super attached to Henry, which I feel like is a hot take because he's such a fan favorite. He likes Hallie, but like he's not the usual down bad yearning type of MMC that we usually get from romance books, and so it's a little bit lackluster for me. I really like Hallie as a character, and I think it's probably because I relate to her a lot. Like her quotes about being an eldest daughter and how your responsibility to your family is to A, not rock the boat, and B, be helpful. Story of my life. I still like the book. Like I zoomed through 50% in a day. I'm just not super obsessed with Henry at the moment. I'm hoping he steps up his game soon because he's starting to realize like, no, I would not like to see her dating other people. No, I don't want her to go back to her ex. Like not really acting on it, and he's kind of confused. So I'm hoping he steps up his game a little bit. We have finished Daydream by Hannah Grace. I ended up rating this 3.5 stars. This was such a fun thing for me to read after I had just recently DNF'd a book. Got me out of that like very slumpy attitude. I think it was super fun. However, I wasn't as obsessed with this couple as I would have liked to be. I really liked Hallie, like I said. Like I really liked her. I feel like I related to her a lot. Henry, as I got closer to the end of the book, I started to get his character more because I also too like need time to like process situations away from them. I can't just like automatically react and also like work through every single situation with the person who I'm having a problem with, especially when I'm not in like the right state of mind. Like it's definitely better for me to remove myself, and I related to that aspect of Henry. But them as a couple together, like I thought they were really cute. I think that Friend's situation that they had going on where he was just like always at her house, like helping her make cookies, like, you know, going through and listening to her talk about her little characters in her book. Like I really liked that part of it, like when they were friends and then they naturally transitioned to a couple. I don't know, like the chemistry wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. While I think this was a fun read, this is definitely like a maybe read in terms of like recommendation wise. At number 11, we have The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. If you are unfamiliar with Casey McQuiston, you might have heard her other work, Red, White, and Royal Blue, and then also One Last Stop. Red, White, and Royal Blue and One Last Stop are some of my favorite books, especially in the LGBTQ genre. Red, White, and Royal Blue, the movie, I eat it up every time. Now this book is about two exes who were so in love, best friends, they grew up together until one day they're at the airport and you don't know why, but they break up. 4 years later, they decide to separately try the same food and wine tour over again without realizing that the other person is on the tour. Editing Julie here, I wanted to give you a review on The Pairing because I realized that I actually didn't film any clips of it because I was infuriated by it. I read a review on Goodreads before I started this book that I really didn't get, and somebody gave it 1 star and said there's too many French things in this book. I didn't really get that at the time, but after reading about 20% of this book, totally get it, and I agree. This book I actually DNF'd. Could not believe I DNF'd it, considering how much I loved Casey McQuiston's other books. This book was just not for me. First red flag. The premise was so weird. First of all, I'm not a huge fan of second chance romance. Like, you really have to write an amazing book for me to love that trope. They were on this tour together, right? Like two exes forced to be in proximity because they're on this paid trip that they're going on, and they're like, you know what, fuck it, we're gonna enjoy it anyway. You know what they decide to do? They decide to have a sex off. They have a sex off, and they make a competition to see who can pick up the most coveted person in each city. I'm sorry, but like, I'm just not into that. I don't know, like that premise in and of itself is like the least romantic premise that Casey McQuiston has ever written. On top of that, with the French thing, because it's a food and wine tour, like I get it. It was very obvious that Casey McQuiston did a lot of research into like fancy, like French cuisine, just not my thing. So like every other sentence had a word that I could not read. I know that I'm pretentious when it comes to grammar and when it comes to word choice, but so like the book just turned insufferable for me incredibly quickly. At number 10, we have This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. Obviously by the title, a summer romance. Two girls who are absolutely best friends. She asks her best friend to meet her in her hometown. It's like a very quaint coastal town. The best friend arrives and she sees this really hot guy at an oyster bar. They hook up. She realizes that guy is her best friend's brother. So I just started This Summer Will Be Different. Tell me why I picked the book out of all the books on the list, the one that's most similar to the main character from A Love Story for Ricki Wilde. Both stories are about women who own flower companies, who are obsessed with flowers and flower arrangements, and their best friend slash sidekick slash employee is a disgraced former child star. How specific is that? It's the same night and I am over halfway through This Summer Will Be Different. Do not let the pace of my reading lead you to think that I really like this book. It's like addicting in like a car wreck kind of way. There's this whole like mystery to it that I'm more interested in than the romance of it, which I'll get to. Main character Lucy and her best friend's brother accidentally hook up with each other. They had no idea who the other person was, and when they find out, they decide not to tell the best friend. I was like, why is this such a big deal? Like, you could just talk to your friend and be like, hey, like, I like your brother. But turns out that best friend had a former best friend that was engaged to her brother, and when she broke it off with the brother, she just cut Bridget off. So that's why she was so like, don't fall in love with my brother, like, you're not allowed to date my brother. I feel like this story is not really about Lucy. I feel like Bridget, the best friend, is the main character of this story. Why are we focusing so much on Bridget? And the mystery that is constantly going throughout the story is about Bridget. It's not even about Lucy. Even though I said it feels like Bridget, the best friend, is the main character, I don't like her. I find her to be really insufferable, to be honest. I don't love her. And that sucks because I'm reading so much about her. Like, I want to know more about the relationship between Felix and Lucy, but I feel like the only thing that's sustaining that romance is the flashbacks we're getting, and all they do is just sleep with each other once a year around a major holiday. I just finished This Summer Will Be Different. I ended up giving that book 2.75 stars. I really wanted to like it, okay? But I found all of the characters to be quite annoying. The only one who I really liked was Felix, constantly being disregarded by like either the main character or by his sister. The pacing was weird. The fact that it was over like 5 years is crazy to me. The idea that the conflict was all about Bridget just moving to Australia, like that's it, seriously, like that was the main conflict. It wasn't even a super conflict between the main character and Felix, who are the main couple. She even says it in the book, she's like, Bridget, you were the love of my life. And that's what it felt like. If you just told me that this was like a friendship story and it wasn't marketed as a romance, I think I would have been more okay with it. At number 9, we have The Paradise Problem. This is by Christina Lauren. I have read Christina Lauren's other books. She's kind of a hit or miss author with me. A couple who ended up doing a marriage of convenience in college. The main character has a dad who has cancer and she is an artist. She knows that she's gonna be broke and she wanted the housing benefits, and she doesn't really know much about the guy who she did a marriage of convenience with. They just decide to do this for 4 years, and then one day he moves out. She assumed, because he had the lawyer to begin with, that they were divorced. A couple years go by and all of a sudden he is back and he's telling her that they never got divorced and that now he's actually incredibly wealthy and he needs to convince his family that they are still together in order to receive his inheritance.
I'm gonna be honest, I was actually not gonna read this book if not for this video. I have a real problem with Christina Lauren. Not that she's a bad writer by any means, but it's kind of like the same way I feel about Catherine Center. Her books, I don't think are ever going to grip my soul and heart. And hey, maybe this can prove me wrong. That one book, Love in Other Words, up until the very end, which if you know the gripe I have with that book, okay, you know my beef with it. That book would have been a 5 stars if not for the very end. So you know what? Maybe she could surprise me again. I am about 50% of the way through Paradise Problem and it is going really well. I was really nervous in the beginning, as you guys saw, and I think it really picked up when Anna and Liam ended up going to the island where they just had to spend enormous amounts of time together. The proximity, the tension, the one bed trope, like, you know, the marriage and convenience, like it really kicked up because they just had to pretend like they were in love. I really didn't expect to like them because in the beginning judged each other very harshly. I officially finished the Paradise Problem. Oh my god, I cannot believe it. That was excellent. Oh my god, I really did not think I was gonna like that book so much. It was so good. I thought the romance was amazing. The development from technically strangers to a wonderful partnership. They were really on each other's teams and I really love that. Like even though like she was being paid to be there, she was like, I do not care about the money so much as like your well-being. Even though she knew that certain things would be at a detriment to herself, she was like, I want you to take care of yourself because nobody has ever had before. He constantly wants to protect her, make sure she's okay, and like that was a 5-star read. I cannot believe. Remember in the beginning, like you saw the clips, like I had zero good expectations of this book. I thought it was gonna be like whatever. I really loved that book. That was so good.
Next we have the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. Marketed, I would say incorrectly, as a fall romance. It is not a fall romance, even though the cover has a fall tree on it, which pisses me off to no end. It's a summer romance and it's about the FMC who works at a bookstore. She's worked at a bookstore for so many years. She just feels like she's kind of in a rut. One day she sees that somebody had highlighted something in a novel in her bookstore. It's giving her instructions as to activities to do. She ends up seeking the help of a guy who has a crush on her. He's had a crush on her for a very long time, but he's known as a player, so she thinks that he's kind of like just being really friendly and that he's not really interested in pursuing her. She decides to seek his help in order to get these activities done, and they're trying to not only have a really good summer using these clues, but also figure out who is leaving the clues in the first place. 50% of the way through the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. I have to walk a little bit on my walking pad for the night. I have to do 10,000 steps. I am only at like 9,300. I'm probably gonna go over 10,000, but like whatever, we'll just keep reading. Really like it so far. I think this is like super cute. I think that the vibes are very summery. That's the only thing that I thought that was a little misleading, is because the front of the book is fall. Like the tree is orange, it's fall. This whole thing is in summer. Okay. But I think it's so funny because I do this thing on my channel where I like try things that are in books. If I see like an activity in a book or a place or a food, I will try it. And that's exactly what Hazel is doing in this book with Noah. And I think that's so cute. So funny. I swear to God, I never read this book before, but I think they're really cute. I think it is very Hallmark movie-esque. It's not super deep, but it's just like a fun time. Vibes are very summery. They're doing a lot of summer activities. It's very stinking cute, and I'm going through it really quickly. finished my walk and I'm now 75% of the way through. Just hit the third act breakup. Ugh, so miscommunication that it hurts. Spicier than I expected for these books because they're so like cutesy covers. Like I just didn't expect that. And also I didn't expect it to be like insta lust, which isn't my fave, but miscommunication, it's always so messy and I'm just like, you're literally adults. You're nearing 30. Let's have a discussion forum. You can use I statements, I feel. If I don't finish this tonight, I'm gonna finish this really soon. Let's do a wrap up of the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. So I finished this book incredibly quickly. I feel like it was just very Hallmark vibes, very cute ending. I really liked it. I ended up giving that book 3.5 stars. It was so enjoyable. Friends or family vibe, very like small town. Everybody knows each other. It's super cool. And I would actually read the other books. Like I haven't read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I haven't read The Christmas Tree Farm, which I think is already out. I would gladly read any of the other books in the series. The only reason that I didn't give it any higher was because it felt very like Hallmark movie, like very surface level. It wasn't super deep. I also don't really love insta love or insta lust. And in this book, we come in and Noah and Hazel already know each other. And Noah's already kind of like half in love with her. I do really like a lot of the quotes in this book. Oh my God, some of the quotes are so good. I think one of my favorites was like, she loved her quiet life. She loved her chamomile tea, her Sunday crossword puzzle, her book in her lap, her bookstore. I also like the quotes about just their relationship. He was like, I would have read every damn book in that bookstore just to spend more time with you. I think the romance was super cute, but it wasn't emotionally deep. Number 7, we have Wilde Love by Elsie Silver, part of a series. This is number 1 in the Rose Hill series. Now, Elsie Silver, I think, is a very good author in my opinion. She's not my fave, but she's pretty reliable, very entertaining. This series in particular is all about single dads. I love the single dad trope. Every single dad in this series is single dad in a different way, which I kind of like. It's like all very nuanced. So this book in particular, this single dad, he is a billionaire. All he wants to do after making his money is have a record label. He gets contacted by a little girl. She is his daughter. He did a sperm bank donation years ago to make money. Her family has gone into a very tough time. So her dad had unfortunately passed away and her mom was incredibly depressed. And so Ford decides to make the decision to take care of this little girl while her mom is getting help. Rosie is coming back to her small town. She has known Ford her entire life, but she just blew up her whole life. She left her boyfriend, she left her job, and she decides to work with Ford on his record label. I ended up reading this book in a video that I did last year where I tried to find a 5-star read. I'm gonna link it up above for you guys so you can see my reaction. Just to encompass what I thought about this book, I thought this book was so entertaining. I thought there were such cute moments in here. I really did like the single dad trope. The development of the relationship between Ford and Cora I thought was just so cute, and also just the three of them made such a cute little unorthodox family. I just ended up loving it. I'm always such a sucker for single dad, single mom, like found family, that trope, and I ended up rating this book 4 stars. At number 6, we have Anna Huang's King of Sloth. This is part of King of Sin series, I think it's called. What is that called? Read book 1, which was King of Wrath. I thought it was kind of like meh. Anna Huang is definitely a hit or miss author for me, and so when I go into her books, I'm a little bit skeptical of what I'm gonna get. King of Sloth is actually about the son of a billionaire. He unfortunately is very resistant to taking up the throne of his father's work. His PR agent is the FMC in this novel. Sloane is very no nonsense. She's known Xavier for years and she just wants nothing to do with him because he's kind of a pain in her butt, and it's becoming more of a pressure because his father passes away and decides to leave him his inheritance with the stipulation that he must become the CEO. I have a reading update for you. I am in the middle of a funny story, like the physical copy, but I'm dumb and I didn't download it on my phone when I was going on a flight to Korea. I ended up reading King of Sloth. I'm about 40% of the way through. It's like intriguing. I don't really have high hopes for it because like Anna Huang is like, she's like enjoyable for me, but she's not like a top author for me. Like her books are like fine, super cute. Like it's not bad. It's just like 3-star material right now. Entertaining in the sense that like, you know, the tension's good. They just decided to try dating, so that's cool. Nothing riveting, but we're gonna try to get through that since I have a bunch of flights to get on today, and it's like a nice phone read. I have a question for Anna Huang. Like all the places that she mentions, because these people are rich, right? Like in the first 5 seconds, they're in Mallorca, then they're in Spain, then they're in Colombia and Bogota, and then New York. And I'm like, have you been to all these places? Because she specifically mentions like places, food. Do you know these places? Have you been there? Because she's like, describing it in such like vivid detail. I have reached my destination in Boracay. I've been on so many planes, trains, boats, shuttles today. Good news is that they gave me a lot of time to read, and I'm actually 89% of the way done with King of Sloth. I ended up liking this book a lot more than I thought I would. We're just at the part they're about to have a cheesy romantic reconciliation after having a third act breakup, basically. I actually really like Xavier more than I thought I would. I really particularly like his character because he was such a mess in the beginning, and I related to that. I really like the fact that this was like not only a romance between the two of them, but also a chance for the male main character to step up his game. I think most of the time we offer a lot more moments and opportunities of growth for the female main character, not necessarily the male main character. I feel like most of the romances you read, they kind of just already have their crap together. And I kind of like the fact that in this romance, Sloane was the one who had all of her shit together. And it was Xavier who needed a push from her in order to start his own business. He is also the one who's more emotionally available, which I like. And he is offering her a chance to have a very stable relationship, and she kind of has to make that decision. So we are reaching the climax where she's decided, I'm being stupid and I need to lock this man down. Not just because he's a billionaire, but also because he is super hot, super funny, super caring. Honestly, I did not expect how romantic he was going to be. He had some really good romance moments. He like set up this movie night for her with like all her favorite foods, and he like knew her taste so well, and he like set it all up on his rooftop. He also like made sure that she was able to see her sister and have a memorable day with her, because they weren't allowed to see each other. It's forbidden by their family, but he secured that for her. As long as he continues to be this male main character awesomeness, I think I am going to be giving him a really good rating at the end, which was unexpected. Let's do an update on King of Sloth. I actually liked it a lot more than I thought I would. Super fun. I finished it this morning when I was in bed. I had like 10% left. Normally I would finish that like as I'm going to sleep, but I was so tired after traveling for like 24 hours that I was just like, I had to sleep, and I was so jet lagged. It was so enjoyable, so fun. I actually ended up liking the ending way more than I thought I would. The only thing that I didn't love about it is that there was that whole cliffhanger of was a fire set to his club. At first he thought it was his fault because like, you know, he was given a warning about the wiring being a little bit old. Then Dante found out that it was actually sabotage and someone set it on purpose. So Dante was like, don't worry, I will figure it out. And then they never said who it was. Like that did kind of irritate me because like it was a plot from this book, so I would have liked a resolution for that. I did end up really liking it. I ended up giving it 4 stars, which was more than I thought I would. I thought I was only gonna give it 3 stars in the beginning because it was like very insta-lusty. But honestly, like I thought the relationship developed pretty gradually. Obviously there was a third act breakup, which is like par for the narrative and like the genre, which is fine. But I really liked their relationship. I thought it was so cute. I really loved it. Much better than book 1. And I actually am really excited to read the rest of the series. At number 5, we have Play Along by Liz Tom Ford. Now, this is part of the very infamous Windy City series. I love that series so much. This book, the entire series is a sports romance. It's probably one of the best sports romance series I've ever read. Every single book in that series is a hit for me. And that rarely happens where like an entire series is so good. This book is book 4. This is about Kennedy and Isaiah, like I said, baseball romance. Kennedy in this book is a doctor. However, she is being undermined by her boss, who is incredibly sexist, and she's trying to make a living working for this baseball team. Isaiah is on the team. Isaiah has been in love with her for years, but she's been engaged this whole time. One day, he doesn't have a ring on anymore, so he decides to make his move. They're in Vegas together, and they decide to get drunk married. Their team has such strict rules about, you know, dating each other amongst, you know, the staff members. They have to keep up the appearance that this is a loving marriage, and that way they can get away from possibly Kennedy being fired. And in the meantime, Isaiah's so in love with her that he is trying to convince her to stay married to him for real while she's trying to pursue a job that's across the country. I've been nonstop reading Play Along for the last like 24 hours. I am 80% of the way through, if not more than 80%, and I am absolutely obsessed with Isaiah Rhodes. The development of this marriage of convenience is just so good. It's driving me crazy because Kennedy is like so averse to physical connection. When she reaches out to touch him or like holds his hand now, like she will initiate contact. I get as excited as Isaiah because he makes her feel so comfortable. It's so cute. If this book, if it keeps going the way it is, it will be a 5-star read. Their relationship is everything. Absolutely ate and devoured Play Along. It took me one day to sit there and devour Isaiah Rhodes because he is just that man. He is absolutely 100% worth the feral energy that is being given toward him. Top book husband, top book boyfriend. Needless to say, the book got 5 stars. At number 4, we have Leather and Lark by Bryn Weaver. This is book 2 in the Ruinous Love trilogy. I read book 1, Butcher and Blackbird. That one was so fun. Every single book in this series, guys, is about a different serial killer. It is definitely dark romantic comedy vibes. Please leave your morals at the door. Each book is about a morally gray female and male main character. This book is book number 2 in this series, like I said, and it is about brother from the MMC from book 1 and the best friend of the FMC from book 1. So this is a marriage of convenience between a serial killer and a contract killer. The contract killer is Lakeland, does not like his boss, and he accidentally pisses off Lark's family by making a muck of her situation. He didn't realize that she was one of the main clients of his boss. Unfortunately, Lark's family is being targeted by someone. The members of her family are going missing, and they think that it is Lakeland doing this. Her family is so powerful and so influential that they're debating whether to take out Lakeland and his brothers and to spare her best friend the grief of losing her husband, because that is her husband now, and this is his brother. She decides to marry him to prevent her family from hurting him because she knows that her family, even though they are ruthless, will respect her marriage to this man. So this is a marriage of convenience. It is incredibly funny. It is like very comedic, Deadpool type of humor. However, I don't think that this book was as good as book 1. The romance in this definitely was more forced, I would say. And also, I felt like the plot of this book was just not as good. There were so many plot holes. The big bad who was like doing all these things to Lark's family just like didn't make sense. And I'm not somebody who really goes into a book searching for plot holes. I'm very much like a vibe type of reader. But like they were glaring and I could not ignore them. I ended up giving this book 3.25 stars. Book number 3, we have Bride. This is again by Ali Hazelwood. I ended up reading this book separate from this video and I ended up giving this 4.25 stars. This book is just fantastic. It is so fun. Vampire and werewolf romance. Lo is the alpha of a werewolf pack. He ends up entering a marriage of convenience with Misery, the vampire who is the daughter of a very influential vampire. She has been the vampire collateral for her community for years, meaning that the humans and the vampires and the werewolves are so at war that they have collateral children who are given to each other's territory, and they know that if anything happens from the other species, they will kill that child immediately in retribution. So she has been living amongst humans her entire life, and one day her best friend goes missing. So she's trying to figure out what happened to her best friend that she grew up with. Meanwhile, she's entering this marriage of convenience with this werewolf who absolutely hates her, and she ends up having to live with his community around a bunch of werewolves while trying to find her best friend. I reread this all the time, and if you have not read this is like the perfect time to read this because it's like fall. It's such a cute little vibe. I love it so much. At number 2, we have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This is the first Abby Jimenez book I've ever read, and it is about Emma, who is a travel nurse. She travels from town to town with her best friend. She has a very rough childhood. She ended up actually being abandoned by her mother. Her mother's a free spirit, very chaotic, just would go missing for days days would forget about Emma, and eventually she ended up being placed with her best friend's two moms as her foster parents. And because she's so scared of abandonment, she just keeps moving from town to town, not wanting to stay in any place. And then eventually she runs into Justin, who actually has just assumed custody of his younger siblings because his mom was caught embezzling after his father died and is going to prison. So now he's a single dad, and these two end up meeting up because they both have the same curse that they spoke about on Reddit. Emma believes that any person that she meets will find their true love after dating her, and Justin has had the same thing happen to him. So they think, okay, what if we meet, we date each other? Will that cancel each other's curses out? I wish I could tell you that I had more vlog footage of Just for the Summer, but that would be a lie. I read it so quickly and so ferociously that I really forgot to film clips. And honestly, that's like the best case scenario for me, if I'm being honest, because that means that I loved a book so much that I forgot to film the process. This book was a 5-star read. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another 5-star read from this list. I didn't know what I was expecting going into this. I've heard great things about Abby Jimenez, but I actually have never read her books. I probably shouldn't have started with book number 3 in a series of interconnected standalones, but here we are. I really liked the idea of this, the premise that it was supposed to be about two people who thought they were cursed in love to basically lead other people to their forever partner. Throw in a toxic mother and having a single parent trope, like it just sounded amazing to me, but I truly did not think that I would love it as much as I did. I will admit the first like 20% to me was incredibly boring. I really underestimated it because the first 20% was so slow, but the minute that Justin started putting in all this effort into curtailing his life to make her happy, it just blew up for me. I feel like calling it a summer romance kind of like plays it down a little bit for what it was, because it was really emotional. Like most summer romances are really light and fun and fluffy, and this had a lot of like heavy topics in it, including like parental abuse, neglect, the foster system. Really played on those aspects and created a beautiful relationship between the two main characters. I loved it. And Justin has been added to my top book boyfriends list. At number 1, according to Goodreads, A Funny Story by Emily Henry, a fake dating romance. The FMC's name is Daphne, and she is engaged to a very well-to-do guy who she thinks checks all the boxes. She's a librarian, and her fiance is very much the opposite in all regards. And one day he ends up telling her that he is leaving her for his childhood best friend, who was also in a relationship. She ends up having nowhere to live because she was living with him. She ends up living with her ex-fiance's new fiance's ex-boyfriend, Miles. The two of them know that their exes are going to get married, and so they decide to post some misleading photos. They decide to fake date a little bit, and in the process they end up going on a lot of different adventures and falling in love with each other. Funny Story by Emily Henry. There were so many good quotes in this book, like truly. I think that not only were the quotes good about the romance between Miles and Daphne, they were really good. I think their relationship development was so great. I think they had such a fun relationship. I think that the fake dating trope just always hits for me. I love it. And I just really like the fact that they were so soft on each other, and the things that they had been trying to hide their entire life, like, you know, their childhood, how much it messed them up, all the feelings that they were trying to hide, how they were just trying to act fine and cool. They had to confront those in order to be together, and I think that the quotes that came out of that were immaculate. Kissing him is so different now that I know him. Now I understand that the breezy, carefree Miles I first met is only his topmost layer, that his nonchalant way of moving through the world is a product of self-control, but beneath that surface he wants. The last bite of cheesecake, the final sip of wine, the bracing cool of the lake, to be kissed, to be held, to be protected. He wants it all, even if the things he'd never let himself ask for or won't let himself have. Was it a 5-star read? No. And I'm wondering if it would have been a 5-star read if I had read this in a different setting, like if I wasn't on vacation, if I wasn't taking so many breaks to do other things. The point when I started this, I was at home. I was like powering through it really quickly. And then I took a break to like, you know, do other things, like, you know, get ready for vacation, then go on vacation. So I ended up giving this 4.25 stars. It might have been just the environment, the headspace I was in when I was reading this. Secondly, I also think that the miscommunication trope at the end was incredibly annoying. Because at one point I thought Miles was being a little bit of a baby and it turned out to be a miscommunication trope, which I didn't love because I really was hating Miles at that point. And rather than Miles explaining it and being like, I'm so sorry, like I tried really hard, he just didn't say anything. And so it looked really bad for Miles at that point. So I was hating Miles and I was like, that is so stupid. Like you ditched her for your ex and then you didn't explain like what the thought process was. It was just a very dumb miscommunication in my opinion. But I still really like the book. So 4.25 stars, very solid read. And again, I think this was such a good, like not only romantic book, but just like a life lesson book. Those are all the books from the top 20 Goodreads romance list. Now, of course, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my order of the top 20 because I do have some spots where I disagree. Number 20, I'm going to put Lies and Weddings. This I do agree with. I do believe that it deserved to be at number 20 just because I DNF'd it. I found it so uninteresting that I couldn't make it past 10%. Number 19, I'm actually going to be putting The Pairing. As you guys saw in this video, I actually DNF'd it. However, I made it longer than Lies and Weddings. I made it up until I believe like roughly 20 something percent. Number 18, This Summer Will Be Different. I gave that a really low rating. I just did not buy the romance in that book. And also I thought that was more about the best friend relationship than the actual romance. At number 17, we are going to be putting A Love Song for Ricki Wilde. Like I said, they just thought they should be together because they were soulmates. At number 16, we are putting Swift and Saddled. I really can't remember anything other than cowboy, hookup, dive bar. That's really all I remember. Number 15, we have Leather and Lark. Just didn't compare to the rest of the series. The rest of the series is so fun, so comedic, so dark. And this book, just because of the plot holes, like I just thought it wasn't as good. 14, we have The Love of My Afterlife. This one, very enjoyable, but just doesn't stack up against the other books. Number 13, The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. This is a very fun summer read. It felt very tropey, very much like archetypes of a story rather than something that I could really grasp onto. Number 12, we have Daydream by Hannah Grace. I think that this book was good, but it was very middle of the way. Like I don't think it was super outstanding. I thought Henry as a character was not super strong. I didn't really feel super attached to him. Really liked Hallie. Then we have the Rom-commers. I thought this was like very enjoyable. There are very, very good parts of it. Catherine Center does know how to write a very fun, quirky romance. So I think that deserves number 11. Number 10, Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. Even when this is my least favorite Ali Hazelwood book, I still think it deserves number 10. I peeled through it so quickly. Number 9, This Could Be Us. I feel like I would have rated this even higher if I wasn't in a reading slump when I consumed this. Elements of it were so good, like single mom, single dad, like content creation, entrepreneurship, like all things that I'm interested in. I just think I was in a slumpy mood. Number 8, King of Sloth. Very, very fun. I thought that this was a really good dislike to lovers example. I liked the fact that I was rooting not only for the couple, but also for the MMC to kind of like get his shit together and like understand what he wanted out of life. Then we have number 7, Wild Love. Like I said, you guys know I love a single dad trope. I always love that. I thought the romance in this was just so cute. And when I read it, like there were just such cute parts. My sister and I were like screaming because I was like reading out to her the really cute parts. Number 6, we have How to End a Love Story. This is so unexpected that I loved this book so much. I thought it was so enjoyable and there were parts that I like cried at. There were so many quotes that I loved in there. I just couldn't believe that that one ended up being number 6 on my list. Number 5. This might be controversial. I'm gonna put A Funny Story, book number 1 on the list. Most people voted that this was the best romance. I was in somewhat of a reading slump around this time. It definitely could have impacted how I felt about the book, like for sure. But I just thought that it was like a good book. I rated it 4.25 stars. Number 4, we're putting Bride. I love Bride. It's so fun. Like it's such a fun read. I just enjoyed Ali Hazelwood attempting a paranormal romance. Like, I love that genre. I'm always going to be a vampire girly. I love reading those books. Number 3, The Paradise Problem. Now we're getting into 5-star territory. Like I said, this book just blew me out of the water. I could not believe that I rated this 5 stars. That couple just like does it for me. Like, Anna and Liam like really loved each other and really took care of each other, and I really have to give them props for that. Number 2, Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Shocked that the first Abby Jimenez book that I read by her is a 5-star. And Justin Dahl, the man you are, you deserve that. Number 1, guys. I hope this doesn't come as a shock to anyone. We're putting Play Along. Play Along just does something to me. That series as a whole, the Windy City series, means something so special to me. I love that series to death. I feel like so accessible and like so tangible to me that I'm obsessed with them, and I really do have to give credit to Liz Tom Ford for creating such an amazing universe. So that's my list, guys, of the top 20 romances. That is my ranking of the top 20 romances of 2024. It was so fun to go back to last year and see what we were all reading, what we were obsessed with last year, and it just makes me more excited for Goodreads list in 2025. If you would like me to repeat this experiment with other years or other categories even, please let me know. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Look at her style from the street. Look at her style from the ghetto.